Okay, so welcome to the fifth episode of my Emotions Adventure series. And the song I'll be discussing with you on this episode is a song called Clouds. And Clouds is a bit of a song of lament and separation of my previous relationship. And it's a, follows in the same vein as Everywhere I Go and Everything I Do, where everything surrounding me was just completely broken and feeling completely messed up in pretty much every sense of the word about the whole situation. And Clouds is essentially a continuation of that, but not necessarily in any other way. Musically, it's a far cry from anything that I've ever done, really. Um, Pretty much because the inspiration behind the song musically, it's inspired by the sort of 1980s new wave era, where it's quite synth heavy and a very strong focus on the bass, and the guitars take a bit of a step back, which is contrary to pretty much everything else I write. And so it's quite unusual for me to focus so heavily on the bass. And the song really suits the vibe really well with the dark synth in the background and the bass leading the way with the momentum of the song. The inspiration behind it, with the likes of, musically speaking, New Order, Joy Division, The Smiths, Duran Duran, that have very powerful bass lines in a lot of the songs that they've done. So it was my sort of little testament to that, really, my little nod to the 1980s, with a bit of heartbreak involved with the lyrics. So, as I mentioned before, it is very unusual for the type of stuff that I usually do. And as I said before in previous videos, I'm not trying to really do a cut and paste of my previous album. I'm looking to sort of do new and interesting things, and this song is definitely an indicator of the sort of inspiration that I've had in my locker, I suppose. And Clouds as well is quite unusual as well because again, like some of my sort of 1980s inspirations, specifically Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, who I couldn't tell you a chorus because I don't think they've actually done choruses. They tend to have musical interludes instead, or solos, rather than having chorus sections. So again, that was my little tribute to the 80s with my lack of choruses, and it's a very short song. I think the demo's just about touches on the 3 minute mark, but there are four verses, and it's because the spacing between the verses. There's basically a half verse worth of music for between the songs, so there's not really an awful lot of breathing space between the verses. So, in all senses, basically, not just lyrically, not even necessarily just musically either, but the whole phrasing of the song is incredibly unusual and really unlike anything I've ever done, which is always exciting, and which is why I'm so looking forward to getting these songs out and recording them and getting some interesting ideas through the producer and whatever I can conjure up in the studio as and when the songs are recorded. And that basically brings us to the end of the video. So stay tuned for the final episode of the Emotions Adventure series. And you take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon.